Trichophyta ferns and their relatives. True land plants. The members of the phylum Trichophyta are true land plants. How? Well, they have evolved. Unlike their friends the bryophytes who live on land but depend on an abundant supply of water to survive, the creatures of the phylum Trichophyta have freed themselves from being dependent on wet environments. They don't depend on a water environment to survive. As we're talking about how Trichophyta have evolved, we can't forget one of the most important adaptations. Trichophyta have specialized tissues called vascular tissues. Vascular tissues transport water, and the products of the photosynthesis throughout the plant.
Xylem and phloem. The xylem tissue that provides support to a plant and conducts water. Responsible for the transport of nutrients and the product. Tracheate cell, it carries water from the roots of the cell soil to leaves in the air. The tracheate cell keeps the plant strong. They have thick, strong cell walls that strengthen the plant's stems and help them stand against gravity. All tracheophytes have tracheate cells. With development of vascular tissue, tracheophytes have evolved true roots and true leaves. What's so special about true leaves and roots? True roots and vascular tissues gathered in a central area called the vascular cylinder. True leaves are photosynthetic organs that contain one or more bundles of vascular tissue gathered into veins.
Also, the leaves of tracheophytes usually have a waxy covering called a cuttle that help prevent water loss by evaporation. Before we move forward, let's go back and look at the history of the first vascular plants. Fossils of xylophytes were found early in the century. Small creeping plants had primitive xylem and phloem tissues that lacked the true roots and true leaves. Botanists believe that are extinct, but some still believe that two species of living plants, ferns and living xylophytes, club mosses, lycophytes, and horsetails, saphanophytes, only descendants of ancient land plants. Lycophytes and saphanophytes grew into 40 meters tall trees. Climates of the earth changed and primitive plants could not evolve fast enough. They were replaced by forests of other plants. The image on the right is of a horsetail and on the left is club moss. Before they were taken over by other plants, the forest of lycophytes and saphanophytes grew into huge 40-meter trees.
Developed trichophytes. They have true vascular tissue, strong roots, and creeping underground stems called rhizomes and large leaves called fronds. Found in wet or at least seasonally wet habitats. Commonly grow in the US but grow the best in the rainforest in the Pacific Northwest and wet tropical areas. All life cycles of plants involve alteration of generation. Ferns, sporatiates produce haploid spores on the underside of the fronds. Spores are produced in sporangia. Clusters of sporangia are called sorial. Reproduction in the ferns has 4 steps. Step 1, release. Step 2, germination. Step 3, growth. Step 4, fertilization.
Reproduction in spores begins when the spores ripen and they are released from the sporangia. The spores may be carried by wind and water over long distances. If the environmental conditions are right, not too cold, hot, wet, dry, etc., the spores germinate into haploid gamophytes. The gamophytes first grow like root-like rhizoids, then flatten out into thin, heart-shaped green structures called prothelium. When the prothelium are mature, sperm are released. Fertilization can take place when the ground and the prothelium are covered with a thin film of water, because the fern sperm have to swim to the archegonia. The diploid zygote produced by the fertilization begins to grow into a sporophyte plant. The developing sporophyte quickly puts its first fronds and then its creeping stems or rhizomes. As the sporophyte grows, the gamophyte withers away. Ferns are well adapted to certain types of environments. Ferns are often found in the shadows of the forest where the direct sunlight penetrates the forest. There are many different types of ferns that are planted and cultivated by gardeners. There are a few types of ferns that are eaten by humans. An example of one of these is fillhead. When picked young and cooked, they're considered a delicacy. Roots perform very important functions. An example of this is it absorbs water and dissolves nutrients from moist soil and anchors plants to the ground, holds the plants upright. They are able to do all these jobs because they grow and develop complex branches and networks that penetrate the soil and grow between the particles.
Plants compete with one another for solar energy. have tall stems and branches to reach above the other plants. Leaves are organs that capture the sun energy, photosynthesis. The leaves had to evolve because needed flat surface over to which chlorophyll were able to capture more solar energy than plants that didn't have them. The flat part of the leaves are exposing a great deal of tissue to the dryness of air. So leaves were covered with a cuticle. The coating slows down the rate of evaporation of water from leaf tissues. Adjustable opening in the cuticle to conserve water while allowing oxygen and CO2 to enter and leave